Well, I think at the end of the day, people from all different political persuasions are looking for people who have been focused on getting things done. I mean, I have strong political views, as do most Americans, at least those who participate in elections. But I do believe at the end of the day, people should be able to, come together and try and hammer out those differences. And I've got a record of having done that over a long period of time in the state legislature, but as a member of Congress on a whole range of issues, from protecting the Bay and working with the farming community as part of the Farm Bill, to providing support for families who have kids with disabilities. I mean, those are not partisan issues. Investing in medical research, helping support our veterans, help get a Small Business Administration grant for a program that allows returning veterans to build skills to start their own businesses. I mean, these are things that bring people together. And I think, as you said, in the Republican Party, they're having a crisis in terms of what their identity is. And Donald Trump clearly is pulling the Republican Party apart. Back in the day, I used to work for Mac Mathias. He was a moderate liberal Republican, really the party of Lincoln in its truest sense. And it's unfortunate that you don't find, anybody like Mac Mathias these days in the elected Republican Party. You still have some voters out there that identify in that way. And I would hope that those voters, in looking at this election, would support me in my efforts to try to bring people together. Both. I believe it's important to have a positive agenda, and there are lots of challenges in the country, but there are also huge opportunities. And here on the Eastern Shore, one of the things I've focused on, and in other parts of Maryland, is trying to build up some of our community colleges, which are great assets and provide a great link in many cases between the learning students need and the skills they need and employers. So whether it's the hospital system, whether it's trying to encourage some sort of startup advanced manufacturing, sometimes renewable energy projects, whatever it may be, if we can do a better job of creating pipelines between community colleges or four-year colleges and jobs, those are really important things. I was down at University of Maryland Eastern Shore. They have a great aviation program. I've been at Salisbury. They've got a number of great programs there. Connecting those programs with the needs of employers and trying to encourage some of the jobs of the future to come here. Those are great opportunities. So look, I think we got a lot of work to do trying to create more good paying jobs, but it is also a fact that Donald Trump wants to drag this country, not back just to the 20th century. I mean, this guy wants to drag it back to the 19th century, especially if you look at the Republican platform. Well, I mean, he's engaged in the most despicable kind of fear-mongering. If you just listen to the speech he gave, his acceptance speech to the Republican convention, he tried to portray a very dark picture of America, that someone was creeping behind every corner and about to jump out and get you, whether it was some kind of illegal immigrant or somebody who believes in a different God or looks different from you. That is just not the truth in the United States today. And we have a lot of challenges. But what he's trying to do is paint this, picture of, that nothing is working in this country, when, for people in the rest of the world looking in, our economy, compared to the rest of the world, we're doing well. We don't have an economy that works for everybody. We got a lot of challenges, but it is not the doom and gloom place that Donald Trump wants to portray it. And it's for purely political purposes. He wants to portray it as gloom and doom, and then he can be the guy who rides in to save the day. The reality is, while we face challenges, we're not the place Donald Trump is trying to portray us as. And the solution is not to turn Americans against one another. It's to work together on issues like modernize our infrastructure, making sure we improve our education system, find ways to prevent jobs from going overseas and incentivize more investment here at home. Lots of good things going on in the country, and we just got to rise to the challenge. The governor has said he's not supporting Trump. My opponent is supporting Trump, and unlike the governor, my opponent also has a voting record. She's part of the Republican leadership in Annapolis, and on a whole range of social issues has voted sort of right down the Republican Party line. For example, she opposes marriage equality. I mean, I think most of the country has moved on. She fought that tooth and nail. I believe that the government shouldn't be dictating to women the choices they make. But my opponent's voting record is one that is anti-choice. And if you look at the Republican national platform, they actually said, you're not going to allow women to choose, even in the case of rape and incest. These are the kind of issues where my opponent is clearly out of step with the overwhelming majority of people in Maryland. And that includes a lot of moderate Republicans and certainly a lot of independent voters. Well, I should mention a couple bipartisan success stories even in the last year, and then a couple things where I worked very close. So in the last year, we've actually passed legislation on opioid addiction, which is an issue that's plaguing all parts of Maryland. So we made a number of policy changes trying to prevent this jump from prescription drug over prescriptions that gets people hooked in many cases on opioids and then leads to heroin. Now, on the downside, a lot of us push for more resources to go to the states to provide for substance abuse. And those additional resources our Republican colleagues did not provide for. But we did some policy reform. We did some important policy reform in the area of mental health, which of course is related in many cases to substance abuse. Again, on the negative side, we didn't provide additional resources. And on the Eastern Shore and throughout the Maryland, we are crying out for more substance abuse, drug treatment, mental health services. But on education policy, on a bipartisan basis, we got rid of some of the bad stuff that was in No Child Left Behind. That had some good and some bad, and we were able to reform parts of that. I myself have worked very closely on Chesapeake Bay protection, working with farmers to try and get more resources to help them prevent runoff.
Has the governor surprised you on environmental issues?
Yes and no. In some areas he's been positive in terms of some of the Chesapeake Bay stuff. On the other hand, he vetoed an important piece of legislation to expand the use of clean energy, renewable energy, in the state of Maryland, which I think can be an important part of our economy going forward. Solar power is a great opportunity in Maryland, as is some of the wind power.
Not in Kent County.
I got it. I understand the issues, and I'm off the Atlantic. Far off Ocean City. There's some projects that are, right now in process. And they're talking about maybe even assembling some of those big ocean windmills in places in Baltimore City. So a lot of opportunity there, and unfortunately, the governor vetoed that bill. I suspect his veto will be overridden when the legislature reconvenes in January. I should say that on the Bay, I hope people need to understand that this is an ongoing battle in Congress. There's a congressman from Virginia, Congressman Goodlatte, who actually proposed an amendment on the floor of the House just within the last few weeks that would undo the backstop from the Environmental Protection Agency in terms of nutrients and pollution flowing into the Bay. The only state that helps is Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania with the Susquehanna River is one of the states that is not meeting its obligations under the Bay Agreement. Maryland is, it's on track. We got a lot of work to do. Virginia's more on track. But by putting this amendment, he got it on. We fought it, and we're going to defeat it in the end. But just to be clear, that amendment would essentially allow Pennsylvania to have a free ride in polluting the bay. And so we've got constant battles on that front in the United States Congress today.